Calling to order the Board of Trustees meeting, September 25th, 2024, 6 p.m. Clerk Perillo, would you like to confirm the presence of a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Trustee Giuliano is absent this evening. Trustee Hill? Thank you. Trustee Laux? Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Present.
Thank you. I'd also like to note that Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gaffgar are with us as well.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, let's stand, everyone, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask tonight again that we all remain standing for a moment of silence to recognize one of the most prominent and beloved people in the village who passed away this Sunday, Naomi Solo. She was the mother of community organization. She actually worked for Danford's for a little bit. She was a marketing director when Danford's was new, of that new hotel and marina. She actually worked for and with my father when the country club was in the process of being acquired. She actually helped him develop community awareness and bring some understanding of what the country club could mean to the village of Port Jefferson should the residents vote to acquire it. And so she touched everybody, and her children went through Port Jeff schools, and one is actually a trustee in the village of Belterre, Michael. I graduated with her son, David. Her daughter, Julia, I think graduated with one of my brothers, someone there. But just a moment of silence for the wonderful, beloved Naomi Solo, please. Thank you. Okay, Clerk Perillo, do we have an announcement tonight?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The next upcoming Village Board of Trustees meeting will be the October work session meeting, which will begin at 5:00 p.m. on October 9th.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Officer John, Suffolk County Police, would you like to come up and give a report? Thank you. Is that microphone on, Jewel? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. All right, you can hear me.
Good
Just
evening.
wanted-
You
just
can
wanted to
take it
make
out
sure.
if it's more comfortable than.
Yeah, let's do that.
Great.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Officer John F. Stithio from the Suffolk County Police Department, 6th Precinct Cope Office. I'm just going to review some stats.
And fix the microphone.
Yeah, I'm just going to review some stats. It was a little loose. I tightened it up. For the month of, it's a month period, August 28th to September 25th, 2023, and we're going to compare that to the same time period in 2024. So the total calls for service in Port Jeff Village last time period was 352, and that went down to 300 for this time period. Aggravated harassments also went down from 2 to 0. Assaults stayed the same from 2 to 2. Out of those assaults, they were both cleared by arrests. And I'll talk a little bit about one of those assaults in a little bit. Burglaries were 0 for both time periods. Criminal mischiefs went down from 3 to 0. Harassments went up from 3 to 7. Of those 7 harassments, we made 3 arrests. 3 individuals decided not to pursue any criminal charges, and 1 is still under investigation. Larcenies went down from 10 to 1, and that one larceny is still under investigation. Menacings, both time periods were 0, and robberies went down from 1 to 0. So we saw a total number of criminal incidents for last year's time period at 33 compared to this year at 26. All right, so we saw a slight decrease there. Our medical calls, we went from 76 to 71, so a small drop there. We did, however, have one fatal in this time, one overdose in this time period, non-fatal. We saw a total number of non-criminal incidents. Last time period was 319 compared to this time period at 274. So we even saw a little decrease of non-criminal incidents. Motor vehicle accidents went down from 19 to 16. And arrests, well, let me get back to the assaults a little bit. I think maybe some people know about an assault that occurred at in front of the frigate or the steam room the other night. 3 individuals against 1. Right now we have 2 individuals in custody that were arrested for that assault, and a third one we're working on. So in case anybody has heard about that, it was the most recent event, maybe 2 or 3 nights ago. Let me touch a little bit on the extra patrols that have been going on here in Port Jeff Village through the summer. I think last month, I don't know if somebody was here last month, I'm not sure, but I do have some total numbers. And this is, I wanted to give you kind of the overall picture of what kind of work was going on here for the summertime. We went from the end of May to now, September 25th. I believe it's going to continue on for another week or 2. I'm not quite sure when the extra enforcement's going to end. However, we made a total. We wrote 521 tickets in that time period, right? From the end of May to now. It's tremendous. It's a tremendous amount of summonses. A lot of it, loud muffler. We saw a tremendous amount of loud muffler tickets, open alcohol containers, public intoxication, littering, public urination. So we tackled a lot of different quality of life issues, especially here in the village, that everybody's been really complaining about. So just to give you an idea, we made 69 arrests during that time as well. So that's a tremendous amount of work that I think 2 or 3 cops, maybe 4, were doing, working a different schedule and really isolated to the village area. Does anybody have anything they want to ask about the data or stats I just presented? Anyone? No? Any other questions about anything else? No? Yeah.
I'll just say thank you for any action you take on the noise pollution. We hear about that from residents all the time, and a lot of folks, I think, often forget that a lot of the homes, especially up on like Spring Street, South Street, they're older historic homes. They often don't have air conditioning, so on top of, and they are aware that they live close to Main Street, but on top of these loud mufflers and that sort of thing, they need to have their windows open during the summer. And families with young kids have told me that their babies are woken up in all hours at night. So thank you for any effort
absolutely.
done on that front.
I'm going to pass that along to the inspector of the precinct. He's the one that really pushed for the officers and for the units to be put in place. That unit was always put in place. Not always, I shouldn't say always. It had a time where we didn't have that whiskey unit, we call it. And it's usually during the summer months. But this time we were getting a lot of muffler complaints. Obviously, right? We hear it everywhere. So these are new things that come in that we need to adapt to and do some better enforcement with. And we did. So it's just about us adapting sometimes. new issues coming up. Anybody have anything they want to ask? Anything? Questions? Concerns?
Keep those extra patrols
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like that.
Yeah, and if anybody has anything they want to, ever discuss with me, they could always call the COPE office at 631-854-8689. And you could ask for me. Officer John would be the best and easiest way to ask for me. Because if you knew my last name, it's kind of difficult. But again, if there's any complaints that you want to bring to our attention, myself and my partners in the COPE office are the ones responsible for putting these complaints in our patrol check system. And the patrol check system really is there to alert the local patrol officers and our other enforcement teams to pay attention to these areas and help with the problem. So please don't hesitate to give us a call. And again, for any non-emergency situations, you could always call 631-852-COPS. If you think you don't want to call 911 for whatever it may be, and go ahead and call that number, 631-852-COPS, and they will direct you to 911. It'll connect you to 911.
Can you repeat the original number?
The COPE office number?
Yeah.
The COPE office number is 631-854-8689. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
So one comment just to
Yeah.
double up on what Trustee Hill said is all you have to do is sit outside in a restaurant on East Broadway, and they use East Broadway as a launching pad up to go east on East Broadway. With those mufflers, you can't even hear yourself talk.
Up the
think,
hill.
anything.
Up the hill?
Yes.
Okay.
Both ways, but up the
Yeah.
hill primarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll make note of it and definitely advise the whiskey team and CSU,
you.
our community support units that do all the enforcement in the precinct. So I'll let them know for sure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. One last thing, if none of you have ever been to the 6th Precinct Community Meeting, we do have one once a month. That meeting is ran by the inspector of the precinct, and he kind of gives you a rundown of everything that's happening in the precinct. Kind of like what I did here. He'll go over all crime stats, motor vehicle accident statistics, locations, overdose locations, but he'll touch on where that's happening in the whole precinct, so you can kind of get a good picture of what's happening outside the village and kind of make a comparison to what's going on. But that meeting is going to be Tuesday, October 8th at 10 a.m. We do have those once a month, and it is on the website, suffolkpd.org. You could look there as well for the dates and times.
Is it at the precinct?
It's at the precinct, yes. Yep.
And also, we're having conversations to try and set a date for coffee.
Coffee with a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Coffee with a Cop, if you don't know, one of our events that we like to put together quite often, and we're looking to do one here in the village, hopefully in October. Try to get one in October, if not November. We'll do our best to advertise it on social media, Instagram, that kind of thing. Email everyone, and I'm sure the mayor and staff here will do their best to get it out to the residents of the village and whatnot, so you guys can come out and maybe we could have a cup of coffee and talk a little bit.
Dunkin', Starbucks, locals, or
You-
Southdown.
We like to use locals. Absolutely. Anybody that's in the precinct. So
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Anybody? Anything? One last chance. I think I've asked 3 times, but it's all good. Oh yes. All right.
Avril, could you come up to the mic, please?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Avril Coakley, resident 111 Tuttle Street. Yep.
Tuttle.
So,
Right.
no, my question is just about speeding.
Yeah.
Oh, is it not?
I think you have to get pretty close. Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
There
you
how's
go.
that?
Yeah.
So, as I live on Tuttle Street,
Okay.
the speeding is like crazy. I don't know how many arrests were, or not arrests, but
Tickets?
tickets.
Yeah, I
for
don't have.
I mean,
I don't have
feel
that
like,
breakdown, but yeah.
I feel like you could just sit on East Broadway and get 10,
Tuttle.
10 to 20 a day.
Where can you? Where is it?
Well,
Tuttle
from,
off
like,
of East Broadway. You
No,
said.
no, no.
Oh.
Tuttle is off Main Street, and it's between Main and High, where the old high school, the original high school is.
Mm,
The BOCES school,
oh, okay. Yeah. Mhm.
it's that street. But the speeding is really more on the Main Street going up the hill to the train station on Main, and then East Broadway going up the hill like toward Belterre.
Okay. So
I just feel like they just rip up
Yeah.
those roads, and it's scary.
yeah, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if any of you remember years ago. There used to be an officer that you would sit at the Infant Jesus entrance right there. You know, off of I guess Main Street.
Right.
That was me. I used to shoot laser, speeders. I mean, I'm going back a little while, but 7 years ago and before that. But I used to sit there and do a lot of speeding because on that hill, I always felt like people were flying in both directions.
Yes.
And even coming from the village, sometimes they come zipping around the turn where the gas station is,
Yep.
and just accelerate. So
Oh, and I just remembered the other road is Old Post by the high school. I can't even believe how many people speed
yeah, Old
past that
Post.
school.
Okay, I will definitely bring that back and put it in. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Suzette Smuckler, 22 Loretta Gate.
Hi.
2 issues.
Sure.
Piggybacking on the person that just talked about speeding,
Sure.
maybe 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, there was a request to the trustees or to the police
Okay.
to provide data on how many, I don't want to say I want to say speeding violations take place in a month. At that time, a year and a half ago, somebody said there was a computer program being worked on
Yeah.
and they would get it to us, and that didn't
Yeah.
happen. It would really be interesting to compare it or in your function to other districts. My other thing is about the noise.
Yeah.
Since everybody's given you a hit list about the noise, it's real easy to find the noisiest place in town. You get on North Country Road and you turn on to Crystal Brook Hollow Road like you're making believe you're going to the beach, and you'll get about 25 rip-roaring motorcycles
Yeah.
all Sunday afternoon while you and your family are sitting at your pool. So if you're putting on a speed area trap, it's
Okay.
Crystal Brook going north.
Going north from North Country.
Right. But going back to the other, is there any chance we can get data on how many speeding tickets are issued?
I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'd have to check with the data analyst at the precinct. I know there is some difficulty with trying to figure out a lot of information about our summonses. I don't know why. It's because we have a separate system that the state kind of runs. I will ask. I will
Thank you.
ask the question, and I will let the mayor's office
And
know.
why do I
if-
feel that the police department wouldn't have that knowledge? Wouldn't they want to know?
I'd like to.
tickets
Yeah, I don't. It's not something that we look at the number of summonses. We don't look too much at what they are per se, right? Unless we're specifically targeting an area and doing speed enforcement, then that information usually is relayed by a supervisor night after night to the higher ups and whatnot. To try to get it on a data system, I don't know if it's there. I'd have to ask the data analyst at the precinct, is this something that we could actually obtain?
Is this
Um,
something you all remember? I can't remember who asked. Thank you for the memory, and thank you for your efforts, sir.
Oh, okay. You're welcome. I'll see what we could do with that. Anyone else have anything? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer John.
Yes, because we have a presentation coming that could probably benefit from it.
Good night.
Thank you. Andy did. Okay, next up, we have a presentation, findings of the multi-year capital accounts review by PKF O'Connor Davies. Jeff, Michelle? Jeff DeVoli, Michelle Yanner here, representing PKF, who worked on the audit or the review. Stephen, do you want to lead us into this?
Thank you, Mayor.
Treasurer Gafkin?
So just for a bit of background for those that don't know, I took office in September of 2023. Shortly thereafter, discovered there were significant issues with the capital fund. Saw that many of the expenditure lines had significant deficit balances, that some of the revenue sources did not seem to be identified on a project-by-project basis, and that some of the general ledger accounts were not project specific. These reports were shared with our independent consulting firm, East End Accounting Services, with Charlene Cagle as CPA, and the problem was confirmed. And we discussed this with the Board of Trustees, and the recommended action was to hire an independent firm to come in and do a 7-year look back. And the village board received proposals from PKF O'Connor Davies, and they just seemed to fit the bill for what we needed to do this look back. For those that don't know, PKF O'Connor Davies is one of the premier accounting firms in New York State. They're routinely named as one of the top 100 firms on accounting today. Jeff DeVoli, who is here with us, is a partner at PKF O'Connor Davies, and Michelle Yen is a director with extensive municipal accounting background. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff DeVoli.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. I believe, Steve, you're going to work or am I going to work this? Okay. Okay, let me start by just going over a quick agenda for my presentation, and I promised the mayor I will keep it as short as possible. The project was, for us, we were engaged to perform agreed upon procedures, which effectively was a bookkeeping exercise to try to recreate the project balances on a project-by-project basis, starting with May 31st, 2016, and rolling those balances forward till May 31st, 2023. We used the May 31st, 2016 audited financial statements as our starting point for the capital projects. Our analysis was to identify proper funding, budgeting, and expenditures to determine what has been funded and what has been overspent. During the time period of this engagement that it covered, there were some complicating factors that increased the difficulty in performing the engagement. The village had significant changes in operations. During the time, there were changes in the treasurer's office. I believe there were 3 changes in treasurers during this period, and the accounting system changed from KVS to Edmunds. Our procedures, these were our procedures, and some of this may sound familiar because I went through this with in work session for the board last month, but I will go through it for purposes of just refreshing everybody's recollection on what we did and how we did it. We made inquiries of management. We reviewed outside sources such as Open Book New York for contracts and payments. We reviewed EMMA, which is the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. That is where all your debt, your bonds, and your band anticipation notes are filed through. We reviewed board activity, abstract of minutes. So for this, the purpose of doing this was to fill in gaps and holes in the string of data that we came across. And as I said, we also consulted with the outside village attorney, who was Cullen and Danowski, who maintained some of these supporting schedules. We looked at trial balances and journal entries, and again, we tied them into audited financial statements. We inquired of grant administrator. We reviewed the two systems, accounting systems, activity, tracking expenditures and revenues, and reviewed details provided from those records to selected projects. That's just what I just went through there. Our findings, let's get to the findings. What we found was that the village did not always record audit adjustments in the books and records of the village. So when the auditors did their audit, they came across adjustments that needed to be made to the books and records. And we noticed that they were not always booked to the books and records, so that the books and records did not necessarily reflect all the adjustments and therefore the fund balances of the audit report. We observed that transactions were not always booked in the proper fund. For example, as I said last month, the revenue for example, a capital grant was booked into the general fund. And I know this may be too much information for some people, but it was booked in the general fund and then transferred to the H fund, which is the capital fund. And that just makes tracking the requirements of that grant a little tricky. And we understand through conversations with the treasurer that there were no board resolutions authorizing project by project transfers, and a little bit more on that in a bit. We looked at 51 capital projects. That's what your books and records had as opening balances during our engagement. 28 of those projects had fund balances or deficits before the start of the period. So we did not look at anything prior to 5/31/2016. And then with the consultation of the treasurer, we looked at intense focus on 23 of those 23 projects. We looked at the funding source, as I said, debt borrowings, transfers from the general fund, transfers from the country club, federal aid, whether it be from town of Brookhaven, FEMA, the COVID, disaster aid, CHIPS, DASNY, DC grants, and the like. So we prepared a roll forward, the balance activity on the project by project basis for the period that I mentioned, 5/31/16 through 5/31/2023. We noticed that 11 projects were zero out through intra-fund transfers. Intra-fund meaning they were transferred from one project, capital project, to another capital project. There were a total of 33 transfers. Now, that's one thing I would like to say at this point is that we do recommend that since those are reflected as transfers and are reflected in the capital project activity of each individual project, we recommend that the board prepare non-protunct resolutions to authorize those transfers. Otherwise, just essentially ratifying those transfers. During the period, 14 projects had positive fund balances, the total of $1.6 million, and 26 projects had deficit balances, totaling $9.7 million. So the roll forward that we prepared has a net deficit of $8.1 million. A large majority of that was for the Bluff project and for parking meter fees, where I believe the intent is to eliminate deficits in other projects with those surpluses. Just a couple qualifiers. We did not verify grant requirements. As I said, those grant requirements have very specific requirements on how the money can be spent. We did not review underlying invoices. Those would all be part of an audit. We did not do an audit. Some projects with debt borrowings may be subject to arbitrage. We saw one project that had a debt borrowing and the money was never spent. So it needs to properly reserve those funds or pay that debt off.
Jeff, quick question on that
Sure.
last bullet,
Sure.
on the prior slide.
Okay, how do I go back?
All interest earnings were journalized out to the general fund. So any money that was borrowed, the interest that was earned on the band fund was.
Was recorded in the general fund.
And what is that? What's the implication of that?
Well, you know, when interest rates are practically zero, not much. But now that interest rates are up, the number is a number. So those interest earnings are supposed to be put back into the project and either reserved or used to pay the debt back.
Okay.
Yeah, there's very specific requirements on interest earnings now. And as I said, you know, back in the day when, you know, cash yielded zero, there was no arbitrage issue. And I did speak to the treasurer, and I believe an arbitrage calculation has been done, or in the process of being done. Some recommendations. We recommend that the village follow guidance provided by New York State OSC, the Office of the State Controller. There is some specific guidance in there that needs to be followed, such as board resolutions adopting a capital plan, following the ARM. The ARM is the Accounting Reporting Manual. It is the chart of accounts that the State Controllers has put out there that makes it easy for you to file your AUD or AFR. We recommend that the treasurer track the revenue, expenditures, and balance sheet accounts for each project independently going forward from May 31st, 2023, the schedules that we provided. And I believe that, that Steve is doing a great job looking at that currently. Board authorizations for the projects of the funding should be, funding source should be included in documentation of the project activity. And as I said, those board authorizations on the project-by-project transfers really need to be looked at, and those non-protunct resolutions really should be put in place. Supporting award letters and borrowing documents should be summarized, and the board should be updated regularly on the status as well for each project on a project-by-project basis. We suggest that the board monitor the status of project from approval through completion. At the time of the project close, a determination should be made whether an operating transfer should be made either to another project back to the operating fund, which would be the general fund, or possibly for a deficit, a transfer from the general fund. Expenditure should be tracked for capital asset additions, construction in progress, and equipment purchases. We noted that in your audit report, there was one qualification of the opinion of the auditor, and that was on your capital assets. Village should track the interest earned by source of funds. Fund balances should be reserved when appropriate. Mayor, that's what we just spoke about there. We recommend that the village attorney check with bond counsel and fiscal advisor if projects are in a deficit and still be bonded prior to the bonding window closes, and I believe the treasurer is in the process of looking into that. And we recommend that the village adopt, most importantly, a long-term capital plan and updated annually, which includes transfers from the general fund or the country club, wherever the transfer is coming from, and that long-term capital plan, 3 or 5 year plan. And we've supplied some information to the treasurer on that, and we of course would help consult on that. We recommend that the revenue for capital grants be recorded in the capital fund. I spoke about that. Also included in our report is the actual roll forward that we prepared. You can see it's got opening balances of 5/31/2016. We went through and identified the revenue and the expenditures with, of course, the treasurer's help and the help of other sources to come up with these project balances. So there's in the report is the summary of all of the projects that we looked at. The green ones are the ones that we paid, was it 23 that we paid special attention to as per instruction from the village treasurer. So I'll open up to any questions.
Jeff, can you, for the benefit of the public, speak to the impact of not having a longer term, so 3 to 5 year capital plan?
Sure. The impact is what we're looking at here on the screen. When you don't track your capital projects on a project by project basis, you end up with overruns on projects. And when that happens, you're going to have to find sources of revenues to plug those deficits. And many times, If a bonding window is closed or there's no capital grants available to fund that particular capital projects, that money is going to come from the operating fund, which is going to cause stress on the general fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with all these line items under deficit fund balance, those items in parentheses, that means that we still owe that money, or that the taxpayers have funded that? I don't,
Yeah, though that money has been spent, so it's not owed, but it may be owed to a fund. It may be owed to the general fund, depending on the source of the revenue. If it's not going to be bonds, you know, in not to turn this into GAAP accounting for governments 101, but you know, for the audience, when you sell a bond in the government area, in general municipal accounting, you're actually recording a revenue. That revenue eliminates a fund balance deficit. So in this case, not in your home, when you borrow money, you got to pay it back. The village also has to pay it back, but it's recorded as a finance source and reduces deficits. So all the projects that are on here totaling a net of $8.1 million need to be dealt with through either bonds, selling bonds, obtaining capital grants if available, or transfers from the operating fund.
Jeff, would that include evaluating expenses and reducing them wherever necessary in order to at least assist in that analysis?
Well, this money has already been spent. The expense has already been recorded through the books and records. So this money is gone already. So part of the capital plan going forward would be to analyze those expenses and to determine, you know, where the village residents' tax dollars are best spent. And I know that the village pays close attention to projects, and it's had some, you know, big projects such as the Bluff project that has taken a lot of attention and a lot of money away from the village. So, you know, determining which projects are absolutely necessary would be vital, especially if that money is going to be coming from the general fund. You're going to be in the process of getting your 5/31/2024 audit shortly, or begun shortly anyway. And, you know, so I do recommend that you wait to see the outcome of that audit for the actual results of 2024 before you make a determination of how this, you know, these deficits are dealt with.
and the capital plan, that would at least, there's no evidence of having a capital plan in the 7-year review. There was no plan.
There's no plan. There was no adopted plan. I don't know what's in a drawer somewhere,
Well,
but there's no capital plan
yeah, that means
adopted.
there's
You
no-
know, a good capital plan, as per the instructions from the OSC, lays out the requirements for a capital plan and lays out the best practices. And it of course it needs to meld with the operating budget also to
Mhm.
determine the funding of those. So if you're going to have those expenses coming from the general fund, you're going to want to know what those are.
Mhm.
And before you adopt a capital plan, of course, I recommend that you determine what the funding source is before you approve the capital plan.
Mhm. And then the residents know what we're paying for with their tax money.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the public right now? Barbara Sabatino.
Barbara Sabatino, 2 Westview Avenue, Port Jefferson. You had mentioned that some of these items needed a closer look. Are those the items in green?
The ones that we looked at, when we came up with, you know, there was 51 projects coming into this process. And the ones that are in green are the ones that the treasurer wanted us to take a special look at. So we dove deeper into those particular projects. Those are generally the bigger ones or the more complicated ones or complex
Okay,
funding source.
my vision is horrible, so I can't see what it says. Can you just name 5 of them?
Sure. We got the harbor wall completion, and these are project names that come out of the accounting software. And you know, I've Michelle and I have had discussions with Steve about maybe cleaning, you know, some of these descriptions up because some of them are general. Harbor wall completion, Port Jeff, country club facilities and improvements, sewer equipment, sidewalk repair, paving, and parking meters.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And part of the problem is that the money was spent, but nobody knows where the money came from to spend.
Well, best of practices in municipal accounting is that you track your projects on a project by project basis.
Mhm.
So that individual tracking, which leads to revelations on deficits, needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. And that also includes parking meter money. Was that tracked? You know, the revenue taken in from people paying for parking, was that tracked to the proper place?
Yeah, there is a capital project here that is in deficit.
Mm-hmm.
That parking meter money is sitting there, and I believe I'm not going to speak for the board, but I believe that surplus will be reallocated to some projects in deficit. That was, I believe, the intention.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the presentation and doing all this work. I just want to, obviously, not having a good record of audit adjustments on the books, not always, accounting for things in the proper account or line item, and not having a capital plan, all not good things. But is there, money that's missing? Is there any criminal aspect to any of this that you were able to find?
You know what? We did not do an
If there
audit.
is, please don't answer.
Yeah. We did not do an audit. An audit requires us to look down to source documents. So I can't say that I'm not an attorney. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'm not. But I can't speak to that. I can tell you that I have communicated with the board on these findings, and I believe there's action to be taken within the accounting records to correct some of these things.
Hi, this is Lynn Hallerman. I'm 113 Thompson Street, but I am also a journalist from TBR. You mentioned a project that money was borrowed, but the project was never done. Do you know what project that was?
Yes, that was yeah.
So what happens in a situation where money's borrowed, but how do you account
Well,
for it?
the debt needs to be paid off, so that needs to be reserved, and that money needs to be paid back. It was, I believe, was it serial bonds?
We almost paid off this year was the last payment. So the bonds that were borrowed were being paid down on a regular basis based on the debt maturity, and they are now paid off. So it's not like you're going to have to give that money back. But if you have a project that you decide you're going to go forward with, you've already borrowed the money and you have a positive. So you're saying, well, we did go out there, get the debt, so we could do this project. So that's money where there's money available to do the digitization.
Yeah, and again, the
But
board resolution needs to happen to transfer that surplus on that particular account to another in progress capital project.
Okay, so there's a loan with interest that we've been paying, but the project wasn't done. Do I have that right?
Yeah, they're right.
expenditures did not happen.
Would you mind you meant this $8.1 million that you mentioned. Can you just explain that in a little more detail? Is that money that was overspent in total? What is that, just for the public?
Well, capital projects, again, not to turn this into anything that is going to make people want to lose their will to live here. But the capital project is a multi-year fund. So very often a capital project does incur deficits. As long as you're tracking them on a project by project basis and you're spending in accordance with the bond authorization, where there's bonds borrowed, bless you, and you're making the proper board resolutions to authorize those projects and authorize those bonds. You know, for example, the Bluff Fund is a roughly $5.4 million deficit. Yeah, so as I said, if we're at 5/31/23 with this project, right? That's what we were engaged to carry this through. So there are transactions that happen in fiscal 2024 that have partially dealt with that deficit already. And you know, as I said, in the municipal accounting world, when you borrow money, it becomes a financing source or revenue for the fund. That deficit goes away when you borrow money. You got to pay the money back, but the borrowing reduces that that deficit. So I believe some of the 8.1 is currently being dealt with, and I know Steve has spent a lot of time you know, tracking that, and he has taken our schedule in great detail and has really owned that, and I'd like to thank him for that, and dealing and helping the mayor and the board of trustees deal with these deficits.
Is phase 2 of the Bluff project included in that 8.1 million? Not the borrow, the band is not.
I believe that happened in 2024, right? Has not happened at all yet.
It's
Okay.
banned, we haven't borrowed it yet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if you a ban is a short-term obligation that does not provide a revenue source. It's not until you serialize that ban does it become a revenue and eliminate the deficit. So a ban is a short-term obligation that stays on the balance sheet in governmental accounting, and it doesn't become a long-term liability and a long-term financing until it's refinanced with a serial bond.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, is it also true that if you look at the 8 million and there are also timing differences? So because something like the Bluff project is a multi-year project, in 24, we have some funding that's going to offset that 8. That's what you were referring to just now. But the remainder represents a deficit that we are, if it was being correctly accounted for in government accounting, we should see a 0 there. Is that right?
Well, to the extent that you have,
If you take timing out.
if you take timing out and you take short-term borrowing out, it'll be 0. So when you borrow the funds, it eliminates the deficit. But you know, as I said, when you have accounts payable or you have short-term bans on the balance sheet of the H fund, you may very well have a deficit. And many municipalities do live with deficits in their capital projects funds due to this timing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look on a project by project basis, when you're done with a project, the project should have a 0 balance. I think that's your point, trustee? Yes.
Yeah, and I believe the recommendation that you made is to ensure that for any future capital projects that we have identified where those funds are coming from before we initiate the project?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's part of the capital plan.
Okay, and that would be a change of procedure now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Stephen, do you want to take us home?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, and thank you,
Thank you.
Steve, for your help during this project.
Thank you, Charlene.
And
Thank you,
Charlene,
Michelle. Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you to everybody, and thanks to the board. So just to provide a little bit of an updated activity, these are the unaudited numbers, but the numbers that I have plugged in for fiscal 2024 to kind of follow along with the recommendation from PKF to continue on with tracking those projects to kind of get a better idea of where we are. So at the end of fiscal 2024, the deficit of $2,722,346. From that, again, pre-audit, and R.S. Abrams will be looking, our new auditing firm will be looking at these numbers, which will then lead us to what actions we're going to take in the future. But when we take all of the projected revenues and expenses out and you boil the number down, that number is a deficit, a total deficit of $1,274,000. And so that's where we are. That's what the capital fund is short in a funding source. Again, we're going to wait for the fiscal 2024 audit to be complete before we take any further actions on remediation towards the capital fund, just to ensure that we have the accuracy of those numbers from an independent accounting firm. Some of the possibilities could be a multi-year allocation from the general fund to the capital fund to offset the deficit, finding another revenue source that may be available to start building up that fund balance to correct the capital fund, or to potentially create a special capital reserve to start building up that fund balance to be able to do future projects and kind of correct some of the deficit fund balances that we have. Towards corrective action, the main recommendation is adopting a capital plan and a capital budget. What that means is every project that the village would like to do in the future in upcoming budget years gets ranked by priority by the Board of Trustees. You identify the project cost, what you want to do with the money, and how much is going to be spent, right? So that all gets adopted with a board resolution by the Board of Trustees, and then it's updated annually as things change. Maybe projects change. You don't want to do this. So that's what a capital plan and a capital budget does. And then the Treasurer's Office will work with our financial advisors, which would be Munistat, to come up with how much debt in the future can the village hold and stay consistent to be able to do future capital projects down the line. And then an update on what the Treasurer's Office and the village has already done to try and fix some of these recommendations that PKF has provided. We've already started to change the accounting codes so that they're in line with GAAP standards in the New York State Office of the State Comptroller, where revenue and expenditure lines are being balanced, meaning budget amendments are being presented to the board to approve so that we know the revenue source, we know what we're spending, and we know how much we're spending. We're running monthly reports and monthly financials that get posted to the village website under the treasurer page so that the public can see what those expenditures and revenues are for all of the funds, but the capital fund specifically as well. We're also using purchase orders to encumber all of the money that is being allocated for a project. What that does is ensure that nothing gets overspent. If that purchase order gets worked down to zero, and there's still more work to be done, we know we have to identify another funding source, and we have to go back to the board to be able to do that, so that projects don't end up in the state that they're in, as you see with this report. And that's what I have, unless there's questions for me from the board.
I just want to give a shout out to the folks on the Treasurer's team who happen to be here in the audience tonight. We have Michelle and Lynn Spiro. Michelle Laurente, I'm so sorry, I know your last name. So yeah, Michelle and Lynn are here. They're working overtime with Stephen to make sure that this office is operating efficiently and accurately. And I know it's been a long year, but a good year. So we really appreciate all your hard work and all your support for our newish treasurer, and not hitting him over the head. But in all seriousness, Stephen, thank you. Does this board have any questions for Stephen in his follow-up reporting?
I'm going to pile on, unfortunately, Mayor, to your comments. So, coming into this situation as someone who's seen some pretty tragic corporate fires. I just want to acknowledge the tremendous work that's gone into what Stephen and the team have done to date. I mean, what we're talking about is making corrections to the software so that the chart of accounts is correct. That's the starting point. That in and of itself is not an insignificant effort. On top of that, the volume of corrections that they had to make, reclasses from account to ensure that the money was in the right place, is also a fairly detailed operation. And then on top of that, the treasurer has now implemented new purchase policies. So I would argue that in a very short time, we have a very small team of finance professionals who work for the village who have accomplished a great deal. So I applaud you guys. Thank you for your work.
Thank you for the kind words.
And the work has not yet just even begun. So
No, it has not. It never
we have
stops.
the repairs to make, right? So, and a lot of these elements that you presented have already been done. We listen to your resolutions every resolution meeting. And so it's obvious that you're putting a lot of work into this, and you started that from day one. So that became, now it's a routine and normal, and we're normalizing this process. And I really appreciate the way that you do it. It's accepted general accounting practice. So thank you for being aware of that and correcting it, and to your team for implementing it with you and supporting you throughout the process. And we support you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That concludes our presentation of the review. Next, I just want to invite any trustees, if they have any updates from in between meetings or whatnot that have occurred over the course of the couple of weeks since we last met. If there's anything you'd like to share with the public that you've learned or implemented, please share it now. If you'd like, no pressure.
I'll just say the Public Safety Advisory Committee is meeting on October 7th in this building. I believe at 7 p.m. we meet. So if you have a issue or concern or idea, you're welcome to stop by and share.
All committee, board, council meetings are now posted to our website calendar of events. So all the trustees are sharing their meeting dates and times and locations. So we're trying to keep that up to date so everybody is aware and can attend the meetings they'd like to attend. Okay.
I would like to just present a quick update on the power plant working group.
Okay.
Okay, so we have effectively, been having conversations with all the stakeholders that are related to the power plant, and everybody from, New York State and NYSERDA and LIPA and National Grid. So we have had some conversations with them about future power states, and that includes things like hydrogen pilots. And for those of you who I've spoken to directly, know that the plant here was in the running for a hydrogen pilot. That pilot has now been finalized to occur in Northport for a number of reasons, mostly environmental and the proximity to power lines for the open space. That said, the plan going forward, they have communicated that to us, and as that is contemplated for a scale up into a production site, Port Jeff is still very much a target for the production site of that. Now, Just so that you're aware, this is not something that's happening next year or the following year. The pilot itself will take a year to procure the equipment, a year of testing, and at that, some strategy on how to productionize it or scale it up to something that would potentially replace one or two of the turbines that are out there now. And I want to add that those conversations have been very productive, and for the residents who were concerned that the power plant is going to close, that seems less and less likely, given energy demands and the forecasting that LIPA is doing. So just wanted to make sure to get that out to the public as an update. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting. Always interesting. Okay, now we'd like to open it up for the public to address the Board of Trustees. Open mic.
Barbara 1702 Westview Avenue. Today, I went on the portjeff.com website. I was hoping that there would be a schedule for leaf pickup, but I saw that there was something on there that Port Jefferson was putting out a request for a company, for people to bid on leaf pickup. So I wanted to ask about that because that threw me for a loop, because the one thing that Port Jefferson has always had the gratitude of residents for was the village coming to pick up the leaves. So going through the agenda today, I see that there's something from John Galino's company. And I would just like to know, was his bid accepted? And if it has, will there be changes to how Port Jefferson in the past has operated for leaf pickup?
I'll ask the clerk to answer that question.
Thank you. So first, regarding the schedule, we have a draft version of a flyer that we are working on with our graphics department.
Okay.
We will be beginning on the 21st of October, so that flyer will be out shortly. So that's number one. The Galino proposal was the most cost-effective of the two received, and it's my understanding that we've had a leaf hauling program as a supplement to our crews for several years. So the Galino proposal you see is one that, again, it's the most cost-effective of the two in the RFP, and we've been doing this for quite some time as a supplement.
Okay, so let me just reiterate what you said to make sure I understand. That on October 21st, I think you said?
Yes.
That's when they're going to start leaf pickup, or that's when the flyer will be available for us to see when our leaf pickup will be?
The flyer will be available for weeks prior, approximately 2, if not sooner, weeks prior. But the pickup, if I remember well, begins on the 21st.
Of October?
Yes.
Okay, because in the past, because of the climate, leaves weren't coming down fast enough, and we didn't have leaf pickup start until December. So, especially last year, so I'm hoping that people will be flexible enough to go with the leaf flow and pick up when the majority of the leaves are down. Also, on the new portjeff.com website, I'm having a hard time finding a couple of things. I mean, it's very attractive, but I didn't easily see a calendar that I could click on. And I did see a notice that said there will be a branch pickup schedule coming shortly for October, but I didn't see one on the website. Okay, so that's number one.
Quick question. Branch pickup and leaf pickup are two different scheduled
Yes,
activities.
they're two different scheduled
So
activities.
we will have it straight. I follow your point about the leaves being, falling around Thanksgiving and into December, so our Public Works will never let us down. Right,
and they never have in the past.
right. That will not change.
Yeah, I find that I finally am getting to the point where I can't do the leaves all by myself anymore. And that I will have to go out and hire somebody, but I want to hire somebody to take them down to the road where the village can pick it up. And I need to time it well. Okay, so Heartland, credit card processing. The village takes, who should I be addressing? Okay. Okay, so the village takes credit cards for certain functions. Okay, so on this sheet, it has credit debit card processing service fees and information, but under the Visa, MasterCard, Discover, only shows the discount rate and not how much we're actually paying for the credit card processing. So can somebody just throw me a number on what our rate is?
So on the proposal, where the discount rate is, it's 1.25%.
Yes.
All right. And then next to it is a per transaction
Uh-huh.
fee charge of 10 cents per transaction.
Okay.
And those two numbers combined are what we pay to Heartland
Okay.
for those charges.
All right. Usually, I used to own a retail store, and our credit card rate was based on dollar amount processed. But this is not done that way?
It is.
It is.
But it's done by individually, the discount rate is based on the volume with each individual credit card company.
Not total for the month?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then I was so happy to see that there was a statement in here, if I can find where I creased it, because I tend to uncrease it while I'm looking. A resolution that does not yet have a number about lack of housing in New York State. And going down the sheet, there is some bullets, and the one that really caught my eye was allowing accessory dwelling units to be built. And many years ago, when Neil Thompson was still with us as a planner, we had some discussions about what he termed granny flats, which is an accessory unit that you put in your yard for your aging parents. And I really look forward to being in an accessory unit in my niece's yard, hopefully. But I just wanted to give you my support on this. I think it's important. We had, on the last planning board meeting, the town of Brookhaven was there, and they want to buy a piece of property in Port Jefferson and put in a family unit. And the graphics that they showed of it were beautiful, and I thought, well, I can live there. So I think Port Jefferson adopting this resolution is a very positive thing to do.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Hi again. Avril Coakley, 111 Tuttle Street. So this particular thing is as the co-chair for the tree committee. My other co-chair, Stella, is in the audience. So my concern was that we were notified by email in mid-September about the tree on East Broadway that has roots that are interfering with the sidewalk. That there's cement upheaval. So I thought I had time to discuss other solutions other than to cut these trees down, because if you walk around the main streets, East Main, East Broadway, there are many, many trees that, the roots are coming up. They're healthy trees, despite, really there's no maintenance for these trees. They're not being watered, they're not being cared for, and if you look at many of the tree pits where they are, it's actually sidewalk repair over the years that have encroached on their growing space. I have a 7.5 size foot, and only I could only walk 3 steps each direction, for a square tree pit for, 50-year-old trees. And it's not adequate. So that's the first thing. But getting back to why I have a bit of concern was that I just happened to trip on it last night on Facebook. There was an announcement on the Port Jeff site talking about how several mature trees are going to be cut down because of the root and the sidewalk upheaval problem. So I thought, well, that's interesting. We're on the tree committee and we weren't notified that this decision had been made. I was planning on having it as part of the agenda on our next week's meeting to talk with Trustee Giuliano. I mean, I understand DPW's concern that, there is upheaval and there's potential for a tripping hazard. But if it's about tripping hazards, this particular tree, which is quite healthy despite its confinement, is really in a wider part of where sidewalks are wider. It's up, if you're walking up East Broadway past the Village Center where you can look down on the ice rink. It's, as you know, that's a much wider part of the sidewalk. So I was going to say, just to consider buying tree guards for those trees where the sidewalks are wider. So there's a section of Main Street that from like Theater 3 towards CVS where the sidewalks are quite wide. There are many, many mature trees that are having much the same issue as this one on East Broadway, but there is room for tree guards. So tree guards, as you know, you've seen them in New York City. There's a lot of municipalities all over the nation that have them. They can be knee-high. They can be quite attractive, and it would protect the tree, and it would protect pedestrians from tripping over roots, if that's the goal. So I understand that there's going to be, there's areas like on East Main where the sidewalks are quite narrow, and trees do take up a lot of space. I walked around from where Grant Street comes at East Broadway all the way down to Village Center, and then all the way on both sides of East Main, and then from East Main all the way to that financial plaza on the right just past. I took pictures of every tree pit. And it's just a consideration to not make drastic decisions about, there are things we can do. Not maybe in every case, but a combination of tree guards. But there's several tree pits that there's an inconsistency. Like one has like a metal grid on top of it to protect, and the roots are within the confines of the pit. But there's many pits that have actually been cemented over. On East Broadway, there's 3. So in the past, there have been trees that have just been cut down and they have not been replaced. So that's another concern. I mean, what sort of guarantee do we have that that tree is going to be replaced? And there's a big cost to cutting down a tree and then repairing that sidewalk and then buying another tree and replacing that tree. Where if we just bought a tree guard, and then I looked at the cement panels that are being uprooted or upheaval. And I mean, those could be much smaller. Part of the reason why they're cracking is they're really, really big. So if you notice in the village, there's many different size panels of concrete. There are, 10 by 10 squares. There are very large slabs. So that's something else that could be considered, is just to put smaller slabs of concrete and give those trees a little more room and put the guards up. that's the issue about the tree in question. I'm just afraid that somebody's going to cut it down between when this thing was posted yesterday and our meeting, you know, on October 2nd. I'm concerned as the tree committee that, you know, we were kind of bypassed. So I'm a little bit confused about not being consulted.
So just very quickly, former Deputy Mayor Cassay was asked to review this issue on the East Broadway tree with the tree committee. Trustee Giuliano was asked multiple times. So I'm not sure if they didn't raise it with you, because it has been something that we've been talking about for over a year. And if you look at the wall of the village center, that tree root is also impacting that retaining wall around the ice rink. Just take a look.
Okay.
Take a look.
Right.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate them.
Because
This
I've
is the
been at
kind of
every
robust
meeting
conversation
since
that I was
February.
hoping would
Yeah.
happen at the tree committee meeting,
Right.
but it's a trip
did-
and fall waiting to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's decorated with DPW blockades.
No, I know, I was there today, but my issue is, okay, we have this one tree. If we can't save this one tree, can we have some protocols in place going forward? There's 3 tree pits on East Main on the west side.
Avril, I'll tell you
Okay.
what. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it in the resolution portion of the meeting.
Okay.
I wish this conversation happened in the tree committee meeting, where the tree committee would examine these types of trees and bring it back through
Okay.
the representative trustee to the board of trustees.
Okay,
So
well, I'm glad I came because I didn't even know. It was obviously, didn't happen, so. But
thank you.
just going forward, I just would like to know if we can be connected with DPW more on a more regular basis.
Yeah, you have a trustee liaison, and that is your connection to the DPW.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Myrna?
Myrna Gordon, Rustic Road. I'm just here to follow up on the single-use plastic issue that's been brought up now for almost a year and a half or more. If indeed there is any news about updating the procedures or policies at the Village Center. The reason I came tonight is because as we approach the holidays and more people might be renting some rooms there, that if indeed anything has been put in place and perhaps there are some updates that you might be able to give me.
Why don't you shoot an email to the clerk, and then there can be an official update?
So I have words from Holly from I heard the name of her organization is
Eco League?
the Eco League. Yes, thank you. And I just need to take the time and insert it into the contract and get that back to Renee. So that's on me. But thank you for the kick in the shorts.
Okay, so there will be wording put into some type of an agreement that a person who is renting the space would consider. Would that be basically be a
It's kind of a legal matter for our attorney. So whatever you're doing has to kind of be worked out through the village attorney. This process that should probably be.
Yeah, I mean, we
discussed.
talked about it once at a work session, I believe, and I said we were going to model it after the ban on alcohol, or the ban on liquor, and just say that you couldn't bring in single-use plastics. And I thought there was a more or less consensus. But if that's not the case,
We're not talking about consensus or agreement. We're talking about just process. So please work with the clerk on that.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other public comments? Okay. So this board has occasion to enter into executive session, so do we have a motion to enter into executive session? Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going into executive session. We will finish up on our agenda after executive session, so we'll be back. Welcome back. Clerk Perillo, will you lead us through the return from executive session, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. May we have a motion to come out of executive session at 9:23 PM, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, on to action items on the agenda.
Thank you. We have resolution number 92524, resolution reappointing Andrew Thomas to the Architectural Review Committee for a term to expire in June of 2027, noting that the holdover term for that position expired in June of 2022. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 92524, resolution appointing Jack Gianola as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the unexpired portion of the term vacated by Alexia Poulos, which expires in June of 2027. May I have a motion
Motion?
and a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, there is a discussion.
So at the work session, we just never found out. Like I asked who else was, or sorry, I asked who, I said I didn't know anything other than his name and that we would get his application. I just didn't see it, or it never came, but I still have lingering concerns with the last amendment we made to the zoning board.
Noted. Any other further discussion? So Jack Gianola, as we discussed in the, I'll just, recap what we discussed in the work session, was that Jack Gianola had served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for many years, is experienced, longtime resident, has great credentials. The zoning board members all agreed and felt he would make a strong candidate for this position. And do we have any other further discussion? I agreed with them, and I accepted his volunteer. He raised his hand to do this, and it's a selfless gesture to volunteer for the Zoning Board of Appeals, to give your time and your knowledge. And yeah, I mean, anybody is free to reach out to any of these people who want to volunteer and talk to them themselves at any point in time. So if that was something that you wanted to do, having known at the work session that he was going to be put up for this, you wanted to wait until we voted on it to talk about it, or to say no? That's your process?
I still have lingering concerns with what we did last time related to the zoning board.
Stan?
I was not at that meeting when you did not reappoint Andrew Thomas to the planning board, and I just don't agree with it.
Okay, that's a complete disconnect from what we're talking about right now.
I just have
No,
a question on what Stan just said. So are you disagreeing with the procedure, or where's as far as this particular resolution, do you have any specific?
Concerns about Jack?
I would prefer to see Andrew Thomas's name there.
That's off the agenda. That's not an agenda item right now.
Well, I voted no on the resolution.
Okay, so that one is,
That's a fail, Mayor.
okay. It's 2-2, so
Correct,
there's no tiebreaker here right now.
correct.
Okay.
Resolution number 92524, resolution appointing Eunice Murato to the Budget and Finance Committee to fill the unexpired portion of the term of member Nicole Palumbo. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 492524, resolution appointing David Knopf to the Conservation Advisory Council for a term to expire in June of 2026. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 592524, resolution requesting that the Board of Ethics review the facts and circumstances of a letter from members of the Board of Trustees to the Rockefeller Institute of Government and provide the Board of Trustees with such advice on ethics and best practices as it deems appropriate. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion.
Sure.
So I just want to, better understand what's the overarching goal of this, because last time we discussed it in the working session, it seemed we agreed that we just wouldn't do these kinds of letters. Is it specific to this last letter, or are we gonna add, is it just board letters in general?
Yeah, so I guess new information came out after we discussed this that wasn't made apparent to the board during the work session, that there was a press release that was issued to the newspapers, and it was datelined in Village of Port Jefferson, which implied that it was issued by the Village of Port Jefferson when it was not. And there was, you were quoted in it in the press release. And the reason we found out about the press release was because it was cited in the newspaper article, and probably was the reason for the newspaper article. So, we need a couple of, we need advice from the Board of Ethics, because Attorney Moran mentioned that there might have been a violation of the ethics code in using village, letterhead without,
Unauthorized use, because there was a resolution of the board.
or opportunity for discussion about the content of the letter. And not that anybody wants anything badly to happen to the school district, but that letter might have had factual inaccuracies that no one really had a chance to vet because it was rushed through. And so that process was problematic for speaking not in public, getting the trustees to come together to resolve something that wasn't, there was no opportunity to discuss in public or ask questions about. So we wanted to utilize actually the Board of Ethics to really help guide us moving forward about what is best practice and what advice on ethics they would provide with a deep dive into this.
So the resolution doesn't mention anything about a press release. I sent a press release, but are you saying trustees cannot send press releases on their own behalf?
It was, as far as I could tell, and this is why we want the ethics board to look at this, right? It looked, the date line said Village of Port Jefferson. Does that imply the Village of Port Jefferson released that press release?
I mean, I think it's that question of fact, which is why a referral to the ethics committee may be appropriate.
So I think you might be just confused on the formatting of press releases. If it said at the top, Village of Port Jefferson, that's implying the location. So when I worked in Washington, D.C. for members of Congress, we would put Washington, D.C. or whichever town we were sending it from that day back in the district. But that wasn't meaning that the press release was issued by the District of Columbia.
So the letter that was written was on village letterhead, or it was on a piece of paper that had the village seal on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more than an implication.
Right. So I just think there's two distinct things, a press release and then the attached letter. Which is
This
the
is
press
why we
release an
want to, that's a
issue,
great
or-
question, why we want to really actually
So
refer to the Board of
It's
Ethics.
not mentioned in the resolution, anything about a press release, which I'm fine with because I think it would be wild to insist that independently elected officials couldn't engage with the press.
No one's insisting that you can't engage with the press.
I thi-
I
I
think
think-
calling
I-
into
again-
question the validity
again,
of sending
I-
a press release is that.
Mayor, I believe the issue here, again, it's factual, right? And you had asked, Mayor, that it be vetted through the village clerk and myself for
Correct.
procedural purposes.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, that didn't happen. I think the body of the letter itself could possibly construe to say that it was a position taken by the village, as it does say, as I recall. Collectively, the Board of Trustees feels this, and it was signed by 4 members of the Board of Trustees, without a resolution of this board taking a official position. And again, put on letterhead. Whether or not any trustee here could take a position and call for a press release, I would agree with Kyle, it happens all the time. But when the substance of that press release has to do with a possible violation of the ethics code, a possible violation of the open meetings law, all of those facts are still yet to be determined or vetted, which is my understanding of why you have an ethics board, when these questions of fact need to be addressed. And maybe the ethics board says, you know what, they can, that's more than appropriate. Or maybe they say, procedure may have been violated here or not, who knows? But I don't think you get to separate out from the totality of the circumstances which issues. So the issue of the fact that there was a press release stemming from a letter which didn't come out of a resolution or a vote of this board on official village stationery, or at least the use of the village seal in those totality of circumstances, does an ethics issue arise from a violation of our ethics code? I don't think anyone sitting here is capable of coming up with that answer, but we can certainly debate it all night long, which is, I believe, why we have an ethics committee. I know that it is, I don't know the discussion, but I believe this was vetted with ethics council, and it was suggested that this go to the ethics committee. Is that a correct statement? So it's not my doing. It's not the mayor's doing. Those facts were presented, and he believed that was the relief appropriate. But I don't think you get to separate out the facts that may or may not apply. Again, as I stated previously, if the position of the Board of Trustees in their individual capacities was, I am Stan Laux, and I am a trustee in the Village of Bellport, and I feel this, and I took this position, and now I put out that press release, we're not having this discussion.
Right.
I think the totality of these circumstances gave the impression that this was an official village position on village letterhead from the Board of Trustees, which I don't believe that was the case because it never came through this room.
So the only thing I'll just add to the discussion here is when we were corresponding about signing on to the letter or not, you asked me to send it to Attorney Moran and Clerk Perlow, and I said, I don't think it needs to go to them. This is more of a policy decision, not a legal one, and basically said, it's your choice to jump onto the letter or not. And we left it as you chose not to. I understood that there was agreement then that this was not a question of legality. Clearly, maybe we were incorrect there, but just so, for the record, I didn't completely ignore that request. I did respond to it.
No one said you didn't respond. Your response was, my directive was, what I said that we should do is, or you should do is, send this to the clerk so she can send it to the village attorney. Because there were things about it that I was unclear about for myself. Did I explain to you what they were? No, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And so clearly there were issues that the attorney could have looked at. We could have texted him and said, can you look at this today? We need your immediate opinion. And you didn't allow anybody the opportunity to understand that. You didn't share that information with, as far as, were you aware that there was a request for consultation from the village attorney, Trustee Ugrinsky or Trustee Laux? Were you aware? Did you know about it?
But I mean, either way, you requested to share it with them because of the substance of it. And
You assumed that.
we can, I mean, I'm sure we'll be sharing the email exchanges with the ethics committee, but sure.
Is there any
I mean,
issue
you
with
said-
it going to the ethics committee?
No. To make it clear, I'm voting yes on this because the village still deserves an answer and what the best practice should, or the practice that we should all follow to make sure that we're not violating the open meetings law and everything there. But during our conversation through email, it was based on the substance, not the process.
Are you assuming that, or
No,
I said,
do you
can you
have-
please send this to the clerk so she can send it to the village attorney? I am not comfortable with rushing through this process. That's exactly what I said.
Okay, and I responded to you and I said, I don't think this is a legal question. I think this is it's purely your policy opinion as an official, and we left it as that you wouldn't want to sign on to it. I think you said something that you weren't knowledgeable on the issue, which is fine, but knowledgeable on the issue.
And I
is
felt like
based
it was
on-
being rushed.
Is based on the substance. It was being rushed because it was the last day to submit it.
Could we move the question?
The question was moved. The resolution was moved, so do we have a vote?
We didn't vote. Yeah.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 692524, resolution approving the minutes of the August 28th, 2024 and September 11th, 2024 meetings of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 792524, resolution approving village participation in the Suffolk County Village Officials Association Golf Outing and Dinner on October 7th, 2024 at the Bellport Country Club.
Motion.
Second.
Go ahead. I have an issue with the next resolution.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can I just ask a question on this one?
Mm-hmm.
Approving village participation, is that who's participating? Are the individuals paying for their participation? How does this work?
Sylvia,
I'm
do you want to
sorry.
respond to that?
I'm sorry, I
About
apologize.
the participation in SCOVOA events?
I'm sorry, what was the question, trustee? I
So
apologize.
who's participating in this, and then who's paying for those participants?
Resolution 7, Suffolk County Village Officials, resolution approving village participation in the Suffolk County Village Officials Association Golf Outing and Dinner on October 7th, 2024 at the Bellport Country Club.
The village is paying for any trustees or affiliated members of the village that would like to participate in this event. We pass a resolution at the annual organizational meeting every year that allows such participation.
And how much does it cost per participant?
I don't know offhand. I believe $350, but I'm not sure offhand.
Per participant?
I believe so, but I would have to check that. Just for clarification, the village attends many SCOVOA different activities throughout the year as an organization that is very important to not just this village, but to the villages in the county. And we show our support in a variety of ways throughout the year.
And what do the proceeds go to for this golf outing?
I don't know that answer. I'm sorry.
Probably the cost of expenses
I don't,
associated with the
So it's,
yeah,
it's
to my knowledge, it's
greens
not
fees
for-profit, yeah.
and
Is-
food.
and
Okay.
is there
Not for-profit.
an educational component to the event, or more social and networking?
I can't answer that. I know that it's networking for sure. And again, that's a very important part of what this association provides for the villages and vice versa.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make the motion. I made the motion. We had a second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. I say aye as well.
Thank you. After conference with the attorney, we have a change to resolution number 8. It will read, resolution authorizing the commitment of time and labor services of Village of Port Jefferson personnel for the decoration of village-owned light poles for the benefit of the annual Mather Hospital Northwell Paint Port Pink Breast Cancer Awareness Initiative. May I have a motion?
Motion?
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Any discussion
Sorry.
about this?
What was the edit there?
Instead of installation, replace it with decoration.
Thank you.
So this is something we've been doing for years, correct? Clerk Perillo?
Yes, it is.
I think Stan Laux can verify that too.
Yes.
Have we ever had a resolution authorizing this?
No, Mayor.
Do
have
we
not.
know how village time and labor services of village personnel were committed
No.
in
and
the
this-
past?
No, and this is a correction of that lack of past practice.
Clearly, we support this effort,
Yes.
so we're
every year.
resolving to commit time and talent of our folks who engage in this willingly and enthusiastically. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank-
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 92524, resolution authorizing the payment of the attached invoice submitted by Grants Administrator Lisa Matto, and further authorizing an expansion of the billable monthly work hours for Lisa Matto to a maximum of 40 hours per month from the previously approved 28 hours per month. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 10-92524, resolution ratifying the approval of the attached contract between the Village of Port Jefferson and Lisa Matto for the provision of grant application and administration services, and authorizing Mayor Shepro to execute the contract between the Village of Port Jefferson and Lisa Matto. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Thank you. Second?
Oh, sorry. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 11-92524, resolution authorizing the solicitation of a request for proposals to assist with preparing natural disaster loss estimates for hazard mitigation planning as part of the Initiative for Flood Reduction Studies grant funded through a Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 12-92524, resolution approving the attached Pro-Housing Communities Pledge as part of the submission by the Village of Port Jefferson for the Pro-Housing Communities application through the New York State Office of Homes and Community Renewal. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 13-92524, Resolution ratifying the acceptance of the attached proposal submitted by JRH Consulting Engineers and Architects, DPC, for mold assessment services related to the August 18th, 2024 rainstorm disaster at the village-owned facility located at 88 North Country Road, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 14-92524, resolution authorizing the Village of Port Jefferson Village Justice Court to apply for a Justice Court Assistance Program, JCAP, grant in the 2024-2025 year grant cycle in an amount not to exceed $30,000 total. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 15-92524, resolution awarding the contract for the attached bid proposal for the removal and hauling of leaves to Galino and Sons Trucking, Inc., and the bid opening on September 16th, 2024. Motion?
Motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 16-92524, resolution hiring Anthony Lazo as an appearance ticket officer in the Code Enforcement Department at an hourly wage rate of $18.31 per hour, effective October 2nd, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 17-92524, resolution appointing the following as members of the Public Safety Advisory Council, establishing the officer positions as noted and setting forth the terms as detailed. Tracy Stapleton, Chair, with the June 2027 term expiration. Joseph Compitello, Vice Chair, June 2027 term expiration. Stella Cohen, Recording Secretary, June 2027 term expiration. Brenda Batter, June 2025 term expiration. Eric Gerns, June 2026 term expiration. Drew Biondo, June 2025 term expiration. Bridget Topping, June 2026 term expiration. Melissa Gianola, June 2025 term expiration. Ryan Waters, June 2026 term expiration. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 18-92524, resolution ratifying the hiring of Richard Kozlowski as an outside staff employee at the Village of Port Jefferson Country Club at an hourly wage rate of $17 per hour, effective September 14th, 2024. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 19-92524, resolution hiring Michael Ballman as a full-time groundskeeper 1 at the Village of Port Jefferson Country Club at an annual salary of $34,086.25, effective September 26, 2024. The standard 26-week civil service probationary period applies to this hiring, as do all the provisions set forth in the collective bargaining agreement currently in force between the Village of Port Jefferson and CSCA Local 1000. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Discussion. Just a question. Did someone leave, or is this an addition to the staff?
This was a position that was vacated, and it's a replacement position.
Okay.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 20-92524, resolution approving the attached pricing maintenance form from Heartland, specifying multi-year village-wide credit card merchant rates and authorizing Treasurer Gafka to execute the pricing maintenance form on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution 21-92524, resolution authorizing the use of ARPA funds for the HVAC repair and replacement at the Village Chandlery Building, and authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget amendment number 56, increasing revenue for line item A 4089 federal aid other in the amount of $12,460, and increasing appropriations for line item A 9950.9 interfund transfer in the amount of $12,460, and requesting that budget amendment number 56 be included in the meeting minutes of the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 22-92524, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to create a new capital expense line item to be known as H 1620251, Village Building Capital Repair HVAC, HVAC. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 23-92524, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget amendment number 57, increasing revenue from line item H5031 interfund transfer in the amount of $12,460 and increasing appropriations for line item H 1620251, Village Building Capital Repair HVAC, HVAC, in the amount of $12,460 and requesting that budget amendment number 57 be included in the meeting minutes of the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 24-92524, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget transfer number 13, decreasing appropriations for line item A 1190.4, contingency expense, and increasing appropriations for line item A 97306, band principal, in the amount of $9,000 respectively, for the purpose of funding the adjusted payment request for the band payment due October 11, 2024, and requesting that budget transfer number 13 be included in the meeting minutes of the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 25-92524, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget transfer number 14, decreasing appropriations for line item A 19904, contingency expense, and increasing appropriations for line item A 714542, Village Center Repair Maintenance, in the amount of $7,104.83 respectively, to fund the emergency repair work performed to correct critical septic issues at the Village Center, and requesting that budget transfer number 14 be included in the meeting minutes of the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 26-92524, resolution adopting the attached to the official Village of Port Jefferson procurement policy. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 27-92524, resolution adopting the attached as the official Village of Port Jefferson manual check policy. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 28-92524, resolution approving the check register and warrants dated September 23rd, 2024, as presented by Treasurer Gafka and as approved by Claims Auditor Goodwin. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have resolution number 29 is born from executive session, and it reads, resolution approving the attached proposal from Haydock Engineering LLC for the provision of on-call village engineer services for non-routine, non-budgeted special projects within the Village of Port Jefferson, with a time and cost estimate to be provided for each project on a project-specific basis, and with each time and cost estimate requiring board approval. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We just we were going to discuss that. Just that motion did not authorize any spending of funds. It just allows us the village to do that in the future, right? Am I maybe better explained by the clerk?
The resolution itself is to engage the engineering firm. However, any and all projects assigned to them, they would be the official engineer of the village. But any projects assigned to them would need further resolution of this board. Therefore, there would be no fiscal impact unless the referral from this board is made. If that clarifies it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 30-92524, resolution to close the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees at 9:57 PM. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
What happens if we all